Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham. The U.S. is in a deep freeze as extreme cold grips the country from Montana to Alabama. This Arctic blast is not just another winter storm. For many areas, it is the coldest in 20 years. Our Caitlin Burke reports.
More than 2 million Americans are layering up today as they face dangerously cold temperatures.
I'm wearing long underwear. I feel like I'm going skiing, but I'm not. I'm going to work.
In Minneapolis, where the wind chill is taking temperatures to 60 below zero, officials issued a rare warning. They say the life-threatening cold poses a particularly dangerous situation, and residents should just stay inside. The historically low temperatures are being caused by a polar vortex, which is basically like a cold weather cyclone. They form in the North Pole and rarely ever work their way this far south.
Polar vortex sounds pretty scary. I think I felt better when it was just cold.
The deep freeze is even reaching the south. Temperatures in Nashville, Tennessee are colder today than in Anchorage, Alaska. And Atlanta, Georgia is seeing temperatures colder than Moscow.
It's really cold. I ain't used to the cold weather.
Meteorologists say that in some parts of the south and east today, record low temperatures set as far back as the 1800s are being broken. Meanwhile, school systems and daycares remain shut down. In some areas, the cold temperatures are bringing winter storms, with snow, ice, and wind proving to be a major problem for travelers. JetBlue canceled all flights at 4 major East Coast airports until later today.
My frustration level is here, in case you want to know.
But the end is in sight. Forecasters say Wednesday's temperatures will begin creeping back towards normal, and by Thursday, most of the country will see some relief from the cold. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
The Senate is scheduled to vote on a measure to extend unemployment benefits today. Supporters need 60 votes to advance the bill that would renew benefits that expired last month. That means Democrats need to get at least 5 Republicans on board. Meanwhile, lawmakers are working on a spending bill of more than $1 trillion. The goal is to finish writing the bill this week so the House and Senate can vote before the January 15th deadline to avoid another government shutdown. Janet Yellen will be the next head of the Federal Reserve. The Senate confirmed her in a 56-26 vote on Monday. Yellen served as vice chair of the Fed since 2010 and takes the reins from retiring Chief Ben Bernanke on February 1st. Observers say her greatest challenge will be knowing when and how far to ease off the Fed's policies that have helped the economy in recent years. It is a rare happening in New York. A Democratic governor is calling for tax cuts, about $2 billion worth. Andrew Cuomo unveiled a plan Monday that would freeze property tax increases and provide a credit for New York City renters. Cuomo says the Empire State has simply been spending too much money, and the problem is at least 60 years old.
And we spent too much money for a long, long time. We actually spent more money than the people of the state earned. We literally were spending more money than we were making. The commission fundamentally recognized that New Yorkers need tax relief. You have a lot of hardworking families, a lot of homeowners who are getting crushed in this state by taxation.
While the governor seeks tax cuts, New York City's new Democratic mayor is calling for a tax hike on residents earning more than $500,000. Chicago's ban on gun sales is unconstitutional. A federal judge issued that ruling Monday. Judge Edmund Chang said the law goes too far and the evidence does not support that the complete ban even prevents gun violence in Chicago. He said the government has a duty to protect its citizens, but it must also protect the fundamental rights provided by the U.S. Constitution, like the right to keep and bear arms. Chicago's gun ban not only covered federally licensed firearms dealers, but also gifts among family members. I want to turn overseas now, where U.S. Secretary John Kerry left Israel on Monday, but is expected back next week. It is all part of a major U.S. effort to broker an agreement between Israelis and Palestinians. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, some believe Kerry's efforts might put Israel's security in jeopardy.
Kerry says his efforts are not mission impossible.
And which I think presents us now with the possibility of trying to find a framework agreement which would really lay out the end game and lay out the framework for the major issues to guide the negotiations from this point forward.
It's not an interim agreement, it's not a transitional period, it's beyond us. We're working hard to achieve an agreement on all core issues.
Those core issues include security, borders, and the fate of Jerusalem. One reported issue is the proposal that Israel give up the strategic Jordan Valley to the Palestinians. Yet 3 U.S. senators, former Senate colleagues of Secretary Kerry, told a Jerusalem press conference recent history shows when Israel gives up land, it puts the country at risk. After Israel left Gaza in 2005, Hamas and other terror groups have fired thousands of rockets into Israel.
Here's the one thing that I think dominates the thinking in Israel. Once you withdraw, then the ability to go back is almost impossible. You know, once you give up your ability to kind of chart your own destiny, look at Gaza. What's the chance of going back into Gaza militarily?
Former Israeli Ambassador Danny Ayalon told CBN News he believes the agreement would base a future Palestinian state on the West Bank, including Jerusalem.
I believe that the deal that he offers is a 67 borders, or the basis of 67 with swaps on a 1-to-1 ratio. It would include Jerusalem. As far as Kerry is concerned, this is what I believe. That should be for recognition by the Palestinians of a Jewish state.
While Kerry puts U.S. prestige on the line to create a Palestinian state, some are concerned that Palestinians see the negotiations only as one stage in their long-range plan. A senior Palestinian official, Abba Zaik, told Syrian TV a Palestinian state based on the 1967 lines was only the beginning. He said, even the most extreme among us, Hamas or the fighting forces, want a state within the 67 borders. Afterward, we will have something to say, because the inspiring idea cannot be achieved all at once, rather in stages. Many interpret the inspiring idea as the elimination of the State of Israel. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Egyptian police are guarding Coptic churches across the country as they celebrate Christmas. The Coptic Church observes Christmas today, January 7th. Reuters news agency reports uniformed officers are standing guard outside each church, while security forces and military units patrol the streets. Sunday, Egypt's temporary president met with Coptic Pope Tewodros to reassure the Christian community. Ali Mansour is the interim president installed after the military ousted Islamist Mohammed Morsi in July. Radical Islamists blame Christians for Morsi's removal, prompting Muslim mobs to destroy scores of churches. Turning now to Iraq, where the government has launched a major military offensive against al-Qaeda. Militants from the group are trying to take over a strategic province. George Thomas has the details.
The Iraqi government has lost control of the cities of Fallujah and Ramadi to al-Qaeda. Inside Iraq's Anbar province, masked terrorists brandishing guns and rocket-propelled grenades and chanting "God is great" have vowed to punish anyone who supports the Iraqi government.
The revolutionaries of Fallujah tribes have resolved to punish those, the Kavajes, who are linked to the sectarian government.
The group known as the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant has been steadily gaining control of the province, trying to create an Islamic state near Syria's border.
The most dangerous thing is that they are able to call fighters together and launch suicide attacks at any time.
The al-Qaeda-affiliated militants are also active in Syria, and now experts fear the group's threat may spread beyond the region.
The international community doesn't understand yet the danger of Daesh. They don't know how easy for it to spread into Europe and Asia.
The Iraqi government is now on the verge of trying to retake both cities. The country's defense ministry released footage showing reported al-Qaeda holdouts being bombed. Iraq's prime minister has urged residents of Fallujah to kick the terrorists out of their neighborhoods as the army surrounds the city, preparing for a potential offensive. Iraq's close Shia ally Iran has offered to help fight al-Qaeda. Meanwhile, Secretary of State John Kerry says the U.S. will help Iraq, but won't send troops to fight the terrorists.
So we are not obviously contemplating returning. We're not contemplating putting boots on the ground. This is their fight.
George Thomas, CBN News.
An Islamic court in Pakistan has decreed blaspheming Islam's prophet should be punishable only by death. That is according to Morningstar News. The federal Sharia court oversees criminal courts that deal with cases punishable by Islamic law. Blaspheming Muhammad was punished by life in prison or death. But the FSC recently ordered the government to remove life in prison as an option. Religious freedom experts say the development is troubling because it could lead to greater persecution of minorities, as well as more power for the Islamic court. Coming up, the gift of life, how new changes in lung transplant rules could start saving more lives.
Inside every child is a hero, a leader, a friend to others, someone who helps out, who does the right thing, who dreams of what they can be, but they still need our help.
What should I do? What should I say? How should I feel?
That's where Superbook comes in. It provides moral and spiritual truths through situations children can relate to, teaching God's Word to the children you love. Join the Superbook DVD Club and receive Superbook's newest episodes as they're available, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25. Get Superbook today and watch the miracles happen.
The U.S. Supreme Court is temporarily blocking gay marriage in Utah, at least while a federal appeals court more fully considers the issue. Same-sex unions became legal in Utah when a federal judge struck down the state's voter-approved ban, ruling the ban violates the constitutional rights of gay couples. That decision led to more than 900 gay marriages in the state. Monday's order from the High Court will remain in effect until the 10th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals decides if banning gay marriage violates Utah's constitution. The Supreme Court has denied a group of doctors' requests to block the implementation of Obamacare. The Association of American Physicians and Surgeons and the Alliance for Natural Health USA wanted the doctor registration requirement blocked. Still pending is a decision on the contraception mandate, which was challenged by a group of nuns. Meanwhile, Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson is suing a government agency for letting members of Congress and their staff get subsidies to help pay for Obamacare health plans. He says that was not part of the original bill. Participants in the new healthcare exchanges are running into big roadblocks over relatively minor changes. For instance, parents trying to add a new baby to their health insurance will find it more difficult. With private insurance, consumers simply notified their insurer and made the change. The Associated Press reports it is not that simple under the Affordable Care Act.
There's a third party involved, the government, and see any of these changes could affect what the government pays for your care and what you pay for your care and the kind of subsidy that you get with your premiums. So therefore, it's not as simple as just calling the insurer. You have to bring the government into it too.
Right now, the healthcare.gov website can't handle such updates. That measure was postponed as the government scrambled to fix all the technical problems during the site's overhaul. After the federal system is ready to process changes, parents will have to contact the government formally to bring their records up to date. 1/3 of adults around the world are now overweight or obese. That is nearly 1.5 billion people. A new report from a British think tank finds the number of obese and overweight people has been rising rapidly in the developing world, nearly quadrupling since 1980. The Overseas Development Institute says the main reasons include diets with more sugar and fat, along with more people with sedentary lifestyles. The report warns of a major increase in obesity-related diseases, including diabetes, strokes, and heart attacks. People who need lung transplants have new hope. Usually people waiting for a lung never get one. But as Lori Johnson shows us, their odds are about to get better.
Lisa Bowman needs a lung transplant.
I've never had a normal breathing day.
She's been on a waiting list for 2 years.
I cannot think of another anything that would be more exciting.
But people like Lisa hardly ever get the lungs they need. That's because lungs that are used for transplants come from patients in hospitals who have agreed to donate their lungs when they die. The problem is 80% of donated lungs from hospital patients are too damaged from things like ventilators or other complications from the hospital stay. But a move is on to harvest lungs from people who die outside of a hospital.
There are some logistical hurdles.
Dr. Thomas Egan is spearheading an experiment whereby EMTs play a vital role. When they're on a call and a person dies, they check the deceased person's driver's license to see if they're an organ donor. If they are, the EMTs would get that body to the hospital as soon as possible to harvest the lungs for transplant.
Your lungs don't die when you do. Unlike other solid organs that die within minutes of stopping circulation, lung tissue and lung cells live for hours after death.
The program is currently only being tested in North Carolina, but if it works well, will likely be expanded to other parts of the country. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Up next, have you ever wondered why some marriages succeed while others fail? We're going to show you what happy couples have in common. The story is coming up next. More single Americans are moving in together as a result of pregnancy instead of getting married. Statistics show that for the first time, fewer couples who become pregnant are choosing a so-called shotgun marriage. The National Center for Health Statistics reports about 18% of all single women who became pregnant opted to move in with their boyfriends. Only 5% chose marriage after getting pregnant. Well, many couples choose to live together instead of getting married because they're not sure they'll stay happy in the long run. But as Paul Strand reports, staying in love for a lifetime isn't as hard as you might think.
These days, marriage gets a bad rap. More and more attention is paid to divorce statistics, and you rarely see or hear about any couples living their dream for a lifetime.
The cliche is that in American suburbs like these, people are leading lives of quiet desperation. But the fact is, many are not desperate at all, and they're living in really happy marriages that will last a lifetime. Now there's a book that shares the secrets of how they stay highly happy and married forever.
Before we got married, Atlanta's Shanti Feldhahn and her husband Jeff have already written relationship bestsellers like For Women Only and For Men Only. Now this Harvard-trained researcher has gathered comprehensive data and research about really satisfied husbands and wives. What she found? Happy couples share a few key attitudes and actions. She puts all this in The Surprising Secrets of Highly Happy Marriages and teaches that anyone can learn them. The first of these happy habits, believe the best of your spouse, no matter what happens. Choosing to believe they care for you turns almost any situation positive. Jeff learned this from his own experience.
I knew that I could trust her. I knew that she had my best interest. I knew that she loved me, and I would believe the best.
The happiest couples go, okay, they couldn't have meant it, they love me, and let's move on. It makes a huge difference when you assume the best.
Shanti's research includes Kim and Sabrina Moore. They personify another of those traits that bring long-term joy. They went all in. There's no escape route or any thought of the D word, divorce. They don't keep secret cash accounts in case the relationship crumbles. And Kim describes the results of not going all in.
Death, because it creates a wedge, and God has designed it for it to be complete intimacy. And you can't have intimacy if you have hidden pockets, things you're holding and hiding from each other.
Sabrina credits going all in for their 27-year union.
I believe that we are happier now than we've ever been.
And don't forget the little things. Thank your husband. Let him know you appreciate his efforts.
Saying it to a guy, that is his equivalent of I love you.
Men need to take their wife's hand, leave her thoughtful messages, and not be afraid of public displays of affection, like putting an arm around her.
All of those things convey that I'm choosing you all over again.
And men need to learn how to quickly get out of a bad mood.
So when he makes the effort to pull himself out of the funk and to not be grumpy, to not be morose, it's like, whew, this isn't going to go in this bad direction.
Another action of the highly happy, no unrealistic expectations. That's because if your spouse can't realistically meet your expectations, then you can't ever really be happy with them. Sabrina came into marriage with this problem.
There were expectations from her towards me that I had no idea that were there. So there was resentment that began to build up because she said, he should know this, and I didn't.
There would be this wedge and this wall between us that he couldn't comprehend, and I couldn't comprehend that he couldn't comprehend. So
your expectations have to change coming into this thing.
Shanti says the research proves without a doubt the homes that practice the habits and attitudes highlighted in her book will be joy-filled. Struggling couples can use them to turn their marriages around. And the Feldhahns want people to know this truth, that the 50% divorce rate is a myth. About 80% thrive and survive, not a measly half.
If you know, most marriages do make it. Most marriages are happy. It's a completely different feeling, like, you know what, statistically, we're going to be just fine. We can get through this because most people do.
So the facts show the reality is you have no reason to be fatalistic. Every couple has it in their power to make their marriage one that could truly be called highly happy. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Atlanta, Georgia.
People react differently in times of emergency. One Chicago girl is the perfect example of staying calm under pressure. Monique Meza went into labor at her home and was unable to get to a hospital in time. That's when her 9-year-old daughter, Alyssa, stepped in. She helped her mom through the delivery from beginning to end, even speaking to her and telling her what to do. When the baby came out with the umbilical cord tangled around its neck, Alyssa calmly unwrapped it like she had seen on a medical TV show.
She felt the baby coming out, and I told her, push the baby out, and I'll catch the baby. And she got scared, but then I catch the baby, and I grabbed the towel, I wrapped her around.
For her age, very, very mature. I know she has a bright future ahead of her, and I'm very, very proud of her.
Alyssa proves she can handle an emergency despite her young age. She says she wants to be a paramedic someday, and I am sure she'll do it. What an incredible story. Well, that's going to do it now for CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a terrific Tuesday, everybody.